Greetings, my friends. Welcome to the Let's Get Gritty podcast with yours truly, Dr. India White. I'm thrilled to be here with you. I have a special guest today, so we're going to rock it out together. Now, before I bring up this rock star, I just have a few announcements for you. First things first, the Let's Get Gritty podcast. It will be featured on Spotify. It'll also be featured on all of my main social media platforms. So, with that said, I want to now transition you into my platforms for you guys to follow me. Thank you for your patience and being so sweet to me and so good to me as I slowly get all of my handles to match. But until then, this is what we have. So first things first, Facebook is Miss India White. LinkedIn is The India White. Twitter is Indie Speak and Teach. Instagram, Indy238. YouTube is India White 123. And TikTok is Dr. India White. And I do have a Snapchat. I do. I don't remember it right now. I think it's Indy238, but I'll get back with y'all. For you younger rock stars, I'll let you know what that is in a minute. Just type my name. I think you'll be able to find me out there. And there's also Threads, Indy238. Now, I also wanted to remind you guys to check out the website when you get a chance, www.india-white.com for books. One of my 60 books or a blog, or to schedule me for a speaking or coaching event. Let's talk about grit. Let's talk about equitable practices. Let's close the achievement gap together. Thanks in advance for that. I do have some events I'm excited about. Minnesota, I am coming to see y'all at the end of the month. Minnesota, let's do this. Thank you so much. NCSM, can't wait to see you guys there. NCTM, I'll be there with you guys. ICTM, OCTM, ATMNE, and there are a couple more that I could not fit on this. And I honestly, there's so many different things going on with all of the travel and the planning and making sure that we're not overlapping. It's a lot of fun and excitement. And I just love being with y'all. I really do. I love it. Thank you so much. I can't wait to get more emails to see how we can work things out for the rest of this year, 2025 and beyond. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for that. Also, check out the Grassroots mini workshop, Grit mini workshop, how to harness grit to help students thrive whenever you get a chance, whether you're doing a PLC or you just want to know about grit. That's a perfect opportunity for you. Okay, now, enough about me. I want to bring on this amazing rock star who has really great ruffles throughout the nation on the work of problem strings. They are a rock star in their own right. They are the expert in problem strings. This is the CEO. She's amazing. She's doing great things. So please take a moment to help me honor to the Let's Get Gritty podcast, Pam Harris, who is the one and only CEO of Mathisfigureoutable. How are you, Pam?
I am fantastic. And Dr. India White, thank you for having me on today. I appreciate it. Let's get gritty.
Yes, let's get gritty. It is such an honor to have you. Thank you so much for just blessing us with your presence today. Now, tell us a little bit about yourself, because I know, some people might know you, might not know you. I know many do, but tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so I had a young son who came home one day, and I was chatting with him, and I said, "Do you know your 5 multiplication facts?" And he looked at me and he said, "No." And I was like panicking, because if my kid doesn't know his multiplication facts, maybe none of the kids know their multiplication facts. And he said, "Mom, you don't have to know your 5s if you know your 10s." Well, as a high school math teacher, I'd never thought about that. I said, "I'm sorry, what?" He's like, "You don't have to know your 5s if you know your 10s. I said, "I heard what you said. I don't know what you mean. Like, what are you talking about?" He said, "Well, if you don't know, say 9 times 5, but you know 9 times 10, well, 5 is half of 10. So if 9 times 10 is 90, then half of 90 is 45. That's 5 times 9. I was like, good heavens, does that work all the time?
Yeah.
And then, like really having never thought about it, I said, give me another example. He said, okay, 5 times 23. India, I was thinking about single digit facts.
Yeah.
And he was playing around with the relationship to find 5 times 20. I mean, that was not a flashcard I memorized, right? 5 times 23. Right. So I thought to myself, well, 10 times 23 is 230. And half of that's 115. I almost had to do long. Yeah. Because of this kid, I looked at him in that moment and I thought, you are confidently reasoning using what you know. You are just figuring out math. And then I looked at my high school students, and they were not. for the most part, they would do what I asked them to do. They would wait till I gave them something and then they would mimic it. And, that I'd give them grades. And when I would say, show me your work, I really meant show me my work. Right.
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 And I wondered in that moment, could I create what he was doing in my high school students?
Wow.
Let me be clear. I really kind of was curious. Could I create him in me? Because I wasn't thinking and reasoning the way he was. So I dove into the research and I started reading journal articles and, research studies. And at the same time, because my kid was in elementary school, I have 4 and 2 of them were in elementary school at that point. I dove into my kids' classrooms and I literally went to my kids' teachers and said, can I just experiment? Like, I'm reading this stuff and some of it sounds cool and some of it doesn't. And I'd like to try it out. And I'm so glad they let me just try stuff. And because of my background in higher math, I was able to sift through some less helpful stuff. You've probably seen it, tricks and stuff, rules that expire. And I was like, no, not that. And find that we can actually teach kids to math the way mathy people math, like the way mathematicians did the math when they were in first grade, when they were in third grade. I would submit to you that people like me were kind of hoodwinked a little into thinking that what we were doing was mathing, what we were doing math, when in reality, I was rote memorizing and mimicking. And we kind of have bought this myth that math is about rote memorizing and mimicking, when in reality, mathy people are doing other things. So here's my work. My work is I interview mathy people. I research how mathy people actually math, and I bring it to the rest of us. Because if I can do it, everybody can do it.
Oh my God.
I want to open the doors to all learners, those who memorize well and those who don't memorize well, because mathing isn't about memorizing. Math is figure-outable, and we can.
I just think this is very powerful, and I'm getting this epiphany because it ties into why students think they have to do the rote memorization, because some of them show up with anxiety, imposter syndrome, feeling like, maybe they're the first. So maybe they're part of the BIPOC community and they feel like, in some of the higher level classes, I don't belong here. I'm not supposed to do this. And so
my family's never been good at math. I don't have a tradition of seeing people being good at math. I might not have a teacher that looks like me being good at math. Can I math?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm a girl, right? So, it's like we have all of these different roadblocks in the way, which, I talk about the path of liberation so much, and I think that this is a path of liberation towards the mental roadblocks that students have. So if you guys are listening, I really want to put a stamp on this and to endorse the work of Pam, because what I'm finding as I'm listening to this is what's going to really alleviate anxiety with a strategy, like a plan of action. So it's not enough just to say, okay, I know that, you're feeling a little afraid or whatever, but we don't have any solutions. This is a practical solution for our students. And the thing I love about it is you're cultivating grit in students as you're doing this. So now I want to talk about your gritty journey. You're very gritty. What cultivated your grit to say, I want to be like him? And you weren't settled to just say, oh, wow, that's amazing that he's figuring that out. Like, what cultivated your grit to say, I've got to do something about this?
I got to tell you, as a high school math teacher, I had the impression that I had to know all of the mathematics. And if I didn't, how dare I call myself a high school math teacher? So, when I think God had to give me that kid that I had to birth him to go, like, you don't think the way I think. And I've seen a lot of mathy people that would do stuff in their heads. I just always assumed they were doing the algorithms in their heads. And I was like, whatever, I can write it down. I can do it just fine. I don't, and I just, whatever. In reality, I was saying to myself, I wish I could be like you, but I don't know how to be like you. And so to save myself, I'm just going to be like, whatever, I can write it down. I'm fine. But somehow birthing that kid, I was like, wait, like you came from me. Like if you're doing that, maybe I could do it too.
Wow.
And I'll tell you, that kid to this day is amazing. One more quick story. So
Yeah.
he kind of he came home in 7th grade. So the earlier story was, well, in fact, I'll tell you, in 1st grade, he made up his own subtraction algorithm.
Wow.
I was like, that's not a thing.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
He came home with a paper that had no marks on it, like no crossy outies and stuff. He just had the answers. And I said, are you cheating?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I didn't really understand what my teacher was doing, so I made it my own way. Like that's not a thing. And he goes, well, like this is what I did. I didn't really understand what he was doing. I had 4 kids. I was busy. I just kind of put it on a shelf. It's like, whatever, weirdo, Well, when 2nd grade came along, he brought home a paper, subtraction with regrouping, same thing, no crossy outies and stuff. I'm like, dude, did you tell your teacher how you subtract? He's like, yeah, I couldn't really remember what I did last year, so I made up another way.
Oh my goodness. What a genius.
Like this is, well, yes and no. I mean, I think we all have natural talents. We all have things that come easier to us. I get basketball up here. I was a basketballer,
Yeah.
What's interesting to me is I think I had some, I mean, I'm kind of short, so I wasn't ever that good, but I had some natural athleticism that I could play basketball. But here's I tie this to math teaching. When I was learning to play basketball, I actually could not do a layup. So for everybody out here who doesn't know what a layup is, that's, like where you dribble and you do the cool thing and whatever. Yeah. India, I could not. My coaches were like, seriously, like, but it took me a few years. It's a little, whatever. It took me a few years. But while I was learning to do a layup, they let me play the real game of basketball. What they didn't do was say, oh, since you don't naturally see the mathematics patterns and you can reason your way through these problems, we're going to then break all that down and have you memorize and mimic the way that you do this basketball stuff off the court. They let me on the court. And I played the real game of basketball.
Yeah.
While I sort of figured out, it's kind of funny, the day that I did a layup, my coach goes, whoa, everybody, Pam just did a layup. Pam, do it again. I was like, don't watch me. Like,
right.
But my point is, we've got this sort of weird cultural thing where for some reason we've decided, and it's not like I don't think anybody made this purposeful decision. I think we had people who naturally were kind of using relationships to solve problems, and they didn't understand why the rest of us weren't. And so they kind of said, well, you could also do these steps. And then people were like, oh, well, I guess I'll do that. And so then the steps became the thing. But I kind of call rote memorizing and mimicking those steps, I kind of call that fake math.
Yeah.
And
interesting.
Well, so you asked about like, how did I make that gritty decision?
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, it took me a hot minute to be able to come to grips with the fact that what I had built my self-concept around was that I was good at math. When in reality, I was good at fake math.
Oh, wow.
And I had to decide, was I willing to go there? Or was I just going to be like, no, we're just going to keep doing this thing because that's who I am. And otherwise, talk about imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And so I'm so grateful to those elementary teachers and middle school teachers that I began to work with, that I said, I just want to experiment. And they were like, come on in, like, let's do some stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, they were maybe not quite that, a couple of them were that welcoming. Many of them were like, you want to what?
Yeah.
And they let me just try stuff. And then I'm so grateful to the number of secondary teachers. So just a little bit more about me. I came on the scene around the same time that graphing calculators did. Okay. So when I student taught, my teacher was one of the very first teachers who worked with the phenomenal 2 professors at Ohio State University who really are the grandfathers of graphing calculators, Frank DeMann and Bert Waits. And they said we could really teach math better if we could visualize it. And I still think we were doing better stuff then than a lot of teachers know today. And it's one of the things I'm trying to help, like all this vision. So really early in my career, I was helping teachers use graphing calculators. So I learned about working with adults. I love working with high schoolers. That's really my jam. Mm-hmm. But I also like working with adults, and I kind of learned to do that with graphing calculators. Well, at that same time, I was having these epiphanies with my son. And so I would be at a workshop for pre-calculus with graphing calculators. And at break, I would say, did you know you can actually think about subtraction? And they were like, what? And I'm like, yeah. And I would show them some stuff. And secondary teachers started saying to me, we would go to a workshop on that. And that's what birthed Building Powerful Numeracy. So I wrote Building Powerful Numeracy as an answer to, and that's where you're saying problem string expert. Thanks for saying that. That's where I put problem strings that I learned from the folks from the Netherlands and Kathy Fosno, who brought them to the States. I learned that we can actually shore up kids' numeracy as we teach the middle and high school content that we teach. And that was sort of how that kind of came to be. Yeah, sorry.
I want to talk to you about numeracy. I love numeracy, and I talk about how grit, you can build grit through numeracy.
Yeah.
Through having those real world situations. And so I want you to now let's pivot a little bit about that numeracy piece. When you're really making this thing practical and making it real for the students, making it relevant for students, even BIPOC students, because there's this whole thing of students can't connect to the math, they can't relate to the math and things like that. So in your work and in your expertise, even in your book, Building Powerful Numeracy, how have you been able to connect the dots for students of diverse backgrounds through numeracy and build their grit at the same time?
Yeah. So my unique position is that if that mathy people actually are doing something different than the rest of us thought they were. And if we can open that world to all students, everybody gets to rise and just use what they know. So quick story. We film a lot of problem strings in classrooms. One of the things I think that's super helpful on my website, if you go there to learn now, you can click on problem strings and you can see videos of us teaching problem strings to real kids. And so usually when we film that, we go in the day before, we learn kids' names. Oh, India, I think names are so important.
Yes.
But I think in order to really connect, names are important. So I go in the day before, I'm pronouncing names. I'm making sure that I still make a name tent because I can't memorize 30 names. Right. Well, 30 times the number of periods we're going to film in a day. Right. But I want to be able to pronounce their name correctly. So I go in the day before, I do a quick problem string with them. They get a feel for what's going to happen. Next day, the camera crews come in. So this was actually in a high school where had a lot of it was actually my kids' high school. So it was primarily Hispanic. There was definitely some Black students, minority white. So my kids actually grew up as minority white. And in that particular high school, I was in a classroom of seniors this day. And so it's the day before the cameras. We're doing the quick problem string. I will never forget this kid right in the middle. It's the middle of the problem string, not really time to ask a question. And he's right in the middle of the class. I'll never forget, sat right there. I think his name was Eddie. And he goes, and I was like, no, not really time to ask a question, but what do you got? And he goes, it's almost like you want us to use what we know to solve the problem. And I kid you not, every other kid in that room goes, yeah. And I'm in the front going, I said, yes, just use what you know to solve the problem. And India, that right there frees everyone up to go, just what I know. Yeah, I can use what I know. Yeah, and I can just reason using what I know, and all of a sudden, the math, the numeracy, the mathematics become relevant because they're using what they know. Yep, they're coming from themselves to say, well, I know this, and I'm like, let's use that. How could you use that now? Another important part of my work is I think it is absolutely essential that we start from what kids know, but then we can't leave them there. Right. So I'm going to gently suggest that there's some good people doing good work out there that will say things that kind of leaves the impression that we leave kids in their unsophisticated strategies. So they'll say things like, got to let kids do what they do. And if they've got a method, man, I'm going to let them use that method. And if they're that, but be careful, caution everyone. We don't mean then leave them there, but also I don't mean then get them to rote memorize and mimic an algorithm. I want to help their thinking get more sophisticated, help their thinking get more complex, help them navigate more things, and all of that, helping kids grapple with things and then successfully doing it, that builds grit.
Beautiful.
That builds that perseverance where they're like, okay, I just used what I know. That I had to think about that. That was, sometimes I'll even say, teachers mostly will go, Pam, I had to really think about that. Like I had to actually, that wasn't easy. And I'll go, oh, wait, at the beginning of this workshop, I said math is easy. Or did I? And they'll go, oh, you didn't actually say math is easy. You said math is figure outable. And I'll say,
Right.
you're going to have to grapple with some things. You're going to not unproductively struggle. And I don't even, that word has gotten some bad, I think people are like, struggle. Why would you ever make kids struggle? Well, the math is worth grappling. I like the word grapple because to me that feels super. When you grapple, it's productive. It's you have a goal. You're getting somewhere. You don't leave kids guessing what's in your head. It's not about making them fumble around until they figure something out. Nope. It's using what they know to reason, and then helping them. You're good how you do that, and helping them then grow more sophisticatedly. So, you mentioned that I'm a problem string expert. For those of you who don't know what problem strings are, do you mind if I just do a quick problem string? Everybody? Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
So problem string is a name of an instructional routine. It might feel like a number talk, but I'm going to suggest it's more, what's a good word? It works better to do some things than just number talks. Number talks are fine. I'm not dogging them. I'm not saying that number talks aren't good, but I'm saying that if we do purposeful problem strings, that's where we actually get kids and teachers and all of us really building relationships to be able to think and reason more sophisticatedly. So here's a particular problem string. I might say to you, do you like gum? And kids are like, gum. And then I'm like, okay, if we've got 270 sticks, sorry, I know where I'm going. And so I'm going. If I have 27 sticks in a pack.
Okay.
Now I would ideally write this down. Like I've got 27 sticks in a pack, and I would put that in a table, and I would say one pack has 27 sticks. Then I might say, how many sticks do 10 packs have? Right. I'm going to pause. Now, if kids don't know 10 times things, this is not a good string for them. I want to choose a task that meets them where they are and helps them go from where they are. So they have to at least have some feel for 10 times 27. Yeah. When they say, well, it's 270 sticks, then I'm like, okay, cool. We're going to use that pattern of times 10 of scale. If I scale the number of packs times 10, I could scale the sticks times 10. 10 packs has 270. How many sticks would 5 packs have? Then I'm going to let them think. Now, I do this often, and often people are like, use what I know. And they might find 5 times 27 using like 5 times 20, 5 times 7. But many people will go, you got 10 packs. Kind of be like my kid, cut it in half to get 5 packs. And then they'll talk to me about how they were cutting 270 in half. And then we can kind of talk about that. Like there's different ways to think about half of 270. You might think about half of 200. And then you might be like, I don't even know half of 70. And then you might think, well, I know half of 60. So like that's 100, half of 60 is 30. And then I've got that 5 left over. You might think about half of 180 and back up. Anyway. So we might, but again, I'm going to make all that thinking visible. It's actually almost tragic that we're sort of doing this where I'm not making it visible. So I really want to record student thinking. In fact, maybe I'll just, before I go on with the strings, suggest another way that we can really help all learners succeed, not have math anxiety, is to not make them think they have to hold all this stuff in their head.
Love it.
A way we can do that is making their thinking visible. And let me tell you, I think this is the vanguard. This is the forefront. This is where we are as mathematics teacher educators, is figuring out how to make thinking visual in such a way that learners can go, when my brain does that, it could look like that. When my brain does that, it could look like, and that is the missing connector. So that now kids can go, I don't have to hold all that stuff up here. I can use what I know. You're going to help me make it visible. And now now it's there. So India, even if somebody is in this and they didn't know 10 times, maybe most of the class knew times 10 times 27. Most of them could cut 270 in half. Maybe I have a couple kids that are like, and they're still kind of like grappling with that. In this moment on the board, I've now got 1 to 27, 10 to 270, 5 to 135, and they can now use those. When I say, hey, how about 100 packs? Kids are like, okay, like we can scale it from the 10. Now we get 2,700 or 2,700 packs. Then I might say, how about 50 packs? Now kids are like, well, how can I use what I know? And in that moment, when they're looking at the board and they go, I can just cut the 100 packs in half. I'm like, take a picture of your brain. What did you just say to yourself? Did you just say to yourself, what did my teacher show me on Tuesday that I can mimic? Or did you say to yourself, what do I know? What do I know? Hey, I've got the 100 packs. I can cut that in half. And then also, there's going to be some kid in the room that goes, but we already had the 5 up there. We had the 5 to 135. I can just multiply 5 times 10 to get to 50.
Yep, that's right.
Way to use what you know.
That's amazing.
Okay, last one. Then I'll end that string with saying,
I love it.
What if we needed 49 packs of gum? Kids are like, I'm like, again, take a picture of your brain. When your brain just said, well, what's now, again, I wish we had the board up here, right? Because now you've got 1 to 27, 10 to 270, 5 to 135, 100 to 207 to 2,700. You've got 50, and you're like, 50. Well, they can cut the 100 in half. They can cut the 5 in half, get that 1,350 to get the 50. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, well, miss, you just need one less pack. I'm like, you think?
Yeah.
No, say more about that. And they're like, well, you just need one less pack. So then I'll say, do you just subtract 1 from the 1,356? And they go, well, no, you can't just subtract 1 stick. You got to subtract all the sticks in a pack. And we are reasoning proportionally.
Oh my gosh.
And even if a kid says, sure, just subtract 1, then I'm going to say, but we subtracted a pack. You can subtract a stick. Like, we're going to build reasoning using what they know. So that's just an example of one problem string. I did kind of a heavy one to do. I could have done.
That was amazing. Like,
Can I do a quicker one for teachers of younger students? Maybe
go for it. Yes.
Okay.
And just for those that are watching that, maybe a principal, whatever. The thing I love about this is, I'm going to be honest. This is how we as adults reason all the time. And you are now liberating children to let them know, I understand this is what it says in the book, but I'm giving you permission to reason the way we all do every day. When we leave the class and we don't have a textbook right here and we don't quite remember, we're at the grocery store, we're at the gas station trying to crank numbers. This is how we reason on a daily basis. So you're literally preparing students for life as to how they could reason on a daily basis and to be successful in all of their endeavors as an adult.
Yeah. And do it on purpose with them as they're young so that they don't have to figure it out on their own. Like when you say, this is how all of us do it as adults, everybody who figured that out as an adult kind of did it on their own.
Yeah.
What if we did it purposely with all kids?
Powerful. And the grit levels, their grit is going to be through the roof when they're adults because they're going to have that much more confidence. Their self-efficacy is going to be through the roof because they're going to know, I know what I'm doing.
I'm doing this. I'm doing this stuff.
I'm doing this. Right.
This is me doing this. It's not, I'm not thinking about someone else's thinking. This is my thinking.
Yeah.
Hey, but I have to say something. You just kind of quoted John San Giovanni in a really interesting way. He was a guest on our free challenge. I do a challenge 3 times a year. In fact, we've got one coming up, August 26th, 27th, and 28th. Okay. Y'all are welcome to join my free challenge, totally free, where I just teach for an hour every night. Mathisfigureoutable.com/challenge can get you there. I don't think it's quite open quite yet. I don't think registration's open quite yet, but it's soon. It's going to be very soon. John said he was we're going to have to get you on as a special guest.
Let's do it.
So John said, there's the math you do at school and there's the math you do everywhere else. And I said, hey, John, do you realize? So I'm going to say, hey, Dr. India, do you realize that that's actually not true for some of us? There was the math I did at school and that was it. I didn't do any other math anywhere else. As an adult, when you're like, all of us adults are really doing that. So listeners, if you were like me and you're like, I wasn't doing that. I was memorizing there are some of us who literally never did any math except the memorizing and mimicking math that we saw at school. That was me.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I was liberated to go, wait, that's what you people are doing in your heads? Wow. I have no idea. I know people are like, your numeracy was that bad? Yes.
Wow.
Yes, it was that bad. And so if I can do it, everybody can do more real math. than fake math. It's fantastic.
Wow.
It's so empowering. And I'm so grateful to be able to share this message with everybody so that maybe nobody can be like me anymore. And again, I was a high school math teacher, pretty successful, who then realized I can actually math the way mathy people math, and we can teach it that way. Yeah, super
Exactly.
cool. Yeah.
And you're just so gritty. I love this. And you were talking about what John was saying, and you know, I think what you're doing, you're liberating them, which is igniting their self-efficacy and making them want to be resilient, which is cultivating that intrinsic motivation that is making them gritty, helping them to persist all the way to the end, to where they're starting to surpass their expectations. So I'm sure that your classrooms, when you were teaching, were literally door open, kids projects everywhere, kids are taking over, and you're just facilitating because you were able to help them master grit, and you're able to help them master that self-efficacy and how to figure out math. And we need more teachers like you. So I want to first just thank you for the work that you do. I wish you were my teacher growing up, because I know I would have had a blast in your class. You remind me of my teacher, Miss Wilson.
Oh,
have you guys on there, but together.
So
but
honored.
you know, it's this is wonderful, and I hope that we can continue to amplify this message that math is figure outable. And you were talking about just how you can continue to develop you know, just that conceptual understanding and developing their sense of reasoning. And with that said, you told me that you have an announcement. You've got something new brewing on the shelves, don't you?
Oh, thanks for asking. Yeah, so I have a brand new book with Corwin coming out. It's being announced at NCTM, NCSM in September 2024. So available for pre-order then, and it'll be out in January. It's called Developing Mathematical Reasoning, Avoiding the Trap of Algorithms.
Wow.
Woo!
That is amazing.
I'm thrilled. I'm super excited. I'm just actually turning in the final draft tomorrow. It's been a labor of love. And, you know, sometimes people will say to me, is that all you do is like numbers? So here's where you will see all of the work, because it's a K-12 book. Beautiful. That really gets at how to avoid the trap of algorithms. K-12, that mathematics really is vertically aligned, and we can teach it that way.
I love that. And you know, thank you so much for doing that. And I hope too that from this, for the teachers that are in that trap of algorithms, how to help them get off of that track and get back on the regular road, on the problem strings interstate, on the mathematical reasoning interstate, because they've been stuck at the detour because they haven't known what to do. And I think that, you know, you being the expert and talking about these, and even the problem strings books, if you guys haven't seen that, it's on her shelf actually in the back.
Problem string books,
right? Problem strings, it's on, yeah.
Yep,
so
yep.
You know, you guys should definitely check this out, and definitely tap into this book. It'll be available. Will it be available at NCTM, NCSM for
pre-order? It ships January 1 of 25.
Okay, awesome. So you guys heard that. So this will be available at NCTM and NCSM. This is Developing Mathematical Reasoning by Pam Harris. Thank you to Corin for that. Corin is really pushing out some books. I think this is
man, aren't they?
Yes, they are. So
they've got some fantastic authors.
Yeah. So, you know, but this is an honor to have you on the show. And do you have any you know, last bits of advice for those that want to build grit? They want to help students with problem strings and to figure math out. Do you have any last, you know, statements and advice for maybe new teachers or veteran teachers or just teachers in general?
Yeah, you bet. So one of the things that I did was have to dive into research and kind of pull things together and like really experiment and stuff. And you can do that, or you can join me kind of on my journey. I've sort of done that work in a big way and kind of pull things together. And so if you want to know more, I invite you to join me on our free challenge coming up, where I'm going to talk exactly about what you just said. Like, what's a great first step for somebody who says, I would like to know more about what you're talking about. That it's a totally free challenge. It's an hour every night. Sign up. You can get the recordings if you can't come on time. That would be a fantastic way for you to go, this is how I could make math more figure-outable for my students. And that's the goal. It's just to make math more figure-outable.
Well, thank you so much, Pam, for being on the Let's Get Gritty podcast. This has been fabulous. Now, how can we reach you for those that are like, hey, I want to reach out to you, whether it's on social media or website or whatnot?
Yeah, I love it. So you can join me on the Mathisfigureoutable podcast if you're a podcast listener. It seems like you might be since you're hearing this one. You can join me at Twitter at PW Harris, and Facebook. If you just search Pam Harris Mathematics Education, I come up. You can search Mathisfigureoutable everywhere, and I'll come up. On Instagram, I'm at Pam Harris Math. What did I not say? The website is probably the best thing. Thank you, Mathisfigureoutable.com. Lots of free stuff there. I put out a ton on social media. A thing that maybe not everybody knows. Everything I put out, not everything, but almost everything I put out on social media, like I'll put out little problems to try and things for teachers to think about, I collect and I put it on my website. So if you click on Learn Now, we just like put that stuff in there. So when I do math strat chat on Wednesday nights, I throw out a problem to the world where we chat about our math strategies, math strat chat. Okay. If you ever wanted to look at the repository of those problems, totally go to mathisfigureoutable.com, click on Learn Now, go to math strat chat. You can see the problem that I asked. And when you click on it, it takes you to the Twitter feed of all the people around the world who put their solutions in, and then they commented on each other's solutions. So that's a fantastic way for everybody to continue to grow and learn. And thank you for your message. Thank you for your story. Your background is unbelievable. The grit that you've shown in your life. I honor your journey and really love that I can amplify your voice a little bit for the future now.
Oh, thank you. Well, you just stay gritty. How about that?
Bam, let's do it.
And we will together cultivate grit in students all over this nation. We'll help close the achievement gap. Thank you so much for making math figure outable. I'm seriously going to share this stuff with my kids. And it's your son reminds me a little bit of my son. And I'm like, I can't wait to go and talk to my son about this stuff. So we'll be in touch for sure. Guys, thank you so much for watching this amazing podcast, the Let's Get Gritty podcast with Dr. India White, with our special guest here, Pam Harris. I want to, of course, remind you guys to make sure you're following me if you're wanting to see this podcast again on social media. It's also on Spotify as well. My Facebook there is Miss India White. LinkedIn is the India White. Twitter's Indie Speak and Teach. Instagram is Indie238. YouTube's India White 123. TikTok is Dr. India White. And check out the website. I will also have this podcast on the website, www.india-white.com. You can schedule me for whatever. Let's get connected. And if you can't reach Pam for whatever reason, you can contact me. I promise I'll get the message to her. And then here's some upcoming events. We'll see you guys at NCTM. Pam, I'm gonna be looking out for you there, by the way.
I'll see you in Ohio as well. We'll both do that.
Okay, great. Sounds good. All right. So, I'll see you guys at some of these events. We've got Minnesota, we've got NCSM, NCTM, ICTM in Iowa, OCTM, ATM and E, and beyond. And so with that said, guys, I'm going to wrap up this wonderful podcast. Thank you so much for joining us again. And until next time, stay gritty.